There's one fact about the bicycle that's always fascinated me. So much so that for years I've been preaching it like gospel to my friends, family, as many people who would listen. Here it is. When we human beings pedal a bike, we become the most efficient animal on the planet when it comes to energy expended versus distance gained. Amazingly, we can go 5 kilometers on 100 calories, basically the energy we get from eating one apple. In the animal kingdom, we're generally not considered that efficient when we travel. In a study that measured the locomotion efficiency of animals, we're about 1/3 of the way down the list when we were walking. The mighty condor, which is the largest flying bird in the Western Hemisphere, is the most efficient. A number of years ago, Steve Jobs popularized a study by someone at the magazine Scientific American, who looked at the locomotion efficiency of animals and compared it to a human being riding a bicycle. Once humans are on a bike, we blow all other animals away, including the condor, by leaps and bounds. Crazy, right? To take it further, when we start pedaling a bike, not only do we become the most efficient animal, but we make the bicycle the most efficient machine on the planet. I think we're onto something here. A bike is 27 times more efficient than an electric car. No surprise then that the bicycle has been called our noblest invention, the perfect confluence of human physicality and ingenuity. Personally, the bike has always been a cornerstone of my life. I made a career out of writing about it. I've written about bikes for the pages of Kootenay Mountain Culture magazine and titles like Bike Magazine. I've also written about them as a marketing manager for a global bike brand. And most recently, I helped create a bicycle documentary called The Engine Inside. And I'm not alone in my enthusiasm. With over 1 billion bicycles on the planet today, there are millions of people who adore the freedom, the empowerment, the mental and physical health benefits, and the unadulterated good times that come with cruising on 2 wheels. Mitchell Scott, Editor-in-Chief at Kootenay Mountain Culture Productions, and this is The Headwaters, brought to you by Columbia Basin Trust. The basin has got a lot going on when it comes to riding bikes. The region is home to a super passionate population of bike enthusiasts that love to ride its many kilometers of amazing trails and spectacular roads. The stories are deep and rich and vast. In this episode, we're going to share a few of those tales. So let's saddle up and go for a ride. We're going to start with a story that is, well, close to my heart. And it's also close to my friend here, who is our reporter for this episode and our podcast sound engineer, the one and only Mr. Graham Tracy. If you're a fan of outdoor action sports films, you've heard the voice. The deep, husky, honey drizzling over gravel voice.
You mean this voice?
Yes, that's the voice. Over the last 15 to 20 years, popular stories, documentaries, and full-length feature films have been made by people who live in the basin who are passionate about bikes. Many of these projects became coveted internationally, solidifying this area's reputation as a mountain biking media hotspot. Graham and I are here to talk about how one bike film we worked on together was born from this regional creative energy and how the film helped influence other action sports filmmakers, both here and abroad.
How much further do you think we're close? I think so. It's just either this gully, I'm pretty sure it's this gully, but it could be next.
We are standing in the once amazing trails that we built for the seasonal section in Life Cycles.
Affectionately known as green turkey.
Green turkey, yeah.
Green turkey, all day, buddy.
Because Gib could call. There was turkeys that lived in the area, and Gib had a way to gobble back at him, and they'd talk to him, so he actually could communicate with turkeys.
That's pretty fitting, actually.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Perhaps the most iconic scene from the 2010 movie Life Cycles was rider and Rosslyn athlete Mike Hopkins riding through all 4 seasons in what was, at the time, a groundbreaking piece of action sports media. It was a game changer for mountain biking in the Columbia Basin, where the film was almost entirely shot, and for the people who made the film possible. I was fortunate enough to write the script, and it was an experience that further shaped my career and strengthened my big love for the bicycle. Since Life Cycles premiered in trail 14 years ago, it's a long time ago, everyone involved has moved in different directions. Here at the Headwaters Podcast headquarters, we thought it was time to get the band back together. So we headed out to the original Green Turkey venue to talk about the anatomy of that iconic scene, but also to see what a decade plus of seasonal change has brought to the zone and to the people involved. So join us on a walk in the woods with Life Cycles creator Derek Frankowski, athlete and filmmaker Mike Hopkins, myself, and Kootenay Mountain Culture Magazine contributing writer, Headwaters Podcast soundman, and the narrator of the film, Graham Tracy. Mr. Tracy, welcome to the Headwaters Podcast.
Thank you, Mitchell. It's wondrous to be here again back in my studio.
Well, no place like home, eh? Speaking of your studio, Life Cycles was kind of a turning point for you as a recording, narrating, microphone sort of dude, right?
Most definitely. It took me from a singer-musician type and added voice actor to my resume. It opened up a whole new set of possibilities for work and how to keep living up here and such. I remember Derek telling me during our negotiations that I'd make more money from the movie than he would because of all the calls I'd get.
I got the same talk.
All directors say that. But he meant it because he's a real beauty. And, we haven't compared receipts, but I have a feeling he was right. I still get calls from all over the world to narrate from clients who are stoked on this film to this day, and not just sporty types. I'm talking industrial paint factories from Finland, German technology firms. A month ago, I got a job from Rip Curl based on Life Cycles cred. It's been 14 years.
Yeah, you're definitely doing way better than I am. But, regardless, we had an amazing time working on this project. So I'm going to ask you, what does it all mean? Why does this movie have so much staying power?
Well, you can talk about the cinematography, which was beautiful, the athleticism, the cultural timing of the film, the more highbrow writing approach. Mm-hmm. Yes. And, the soundtrack was perfect. But in my opinion, it's mostly because Derek and Ryan Gibb, the other principal creator behind the film, they weren't trying to sell anybody anything. It was a very real, creative endeavor without compromise. They used resources they had at hand, completely unspoiled by any Hollywood-esque fluffery. And you just can't fake that. It's the great common intangible of all art that stands the test of time. The realness. And in this seasonal wipe scene we're talking about here, all those elements came together. This is the story of a way back in, to the rush of moving forward. Born from the Earth's crust, grown from the seeds of innovation, forged in the fires of industry. The Earth's most efficient machine creates its most efficient animal. The bicycle, our noblest invention.
It's such a great scene. Monumental. So cool.
It must be the most rewound section of the film. The way it sets up with the soothing nature shots and the calm philosophies and my big dumb lullaby voice. And then boom, the ride cymbal heavy drum beat kicks in and Hopkins comes barreling terminal velocity out of nowhere. I can still remember the theater erupting at the premiere in Trail. I knew right then that Derek and Ryan had really done something. I'll let Frankowski describe how the scene was actually shot.
Trails be tacky right now. This would be a good time to get ripping, dude.
Dude, it's
Hey?
It's on.
It's Primavera right now. So the idea behind that whole section was just try to take people through the life cycles of a trail over a season, basically. But in order to do that, it actually took us a few years to film to make that look like it's all taken over one season. But we were scouting around in this area, and we heard it was like, you guys own the land there, and we're just wondering if we could like maybe go in there and film a little bit for this bike film that we're making. And he's like, yeah, no problem, right? Like, of course, which was great because he didn't care about liability or anything. But we spent like 2.5 years in there filming, which I don't think he would have said yes to if we would have said that at the start. Unique situation, because basically what we had to do is we had to build permanent stations where the camera would sit. So we had about like a dozen different turrets that we'd bolt the camera to, and then we'd come back in every season and film from that exact same spot. We'd bolt the camera back on to the location, and we built out a 2x4, strapped to trees, whatever the hell we had to do. And then Hopkins had to keep that kit and his bike and everything the same every time. So we probably shot there, like, I don't know, how many times do you think we went in and filmed there? 30 days, 40 days of filming over 2 years kind of thing?
Something like that, yeah. If I had any minor infraction, or if I progressively got better at riding and was faster, I actually had to slow up my riding to make sure it matched the season before. And if I manual through a section, I had to match that manual every single time, in like no matter when we were shooting, whether it was 3 or 4 or 5 months apart, over the course of 2 different years.
That's Mike Hopkins talking in the last part of the clip, the guy riding in the scene. The local boy, born and raised in Rosslyn. We actually did a story on Hopkins 15 years ago in KMC called The Kootenay Kid. But then again, the whole crew was local. It's really one of the best parts of the movie, how it was a truly 100-mile production. It's quite serendipitous that all the pieces were sitting there just ready to be accessed, that it all came together the way it did.
Exactly. Real natural-like. In a place that was kind of ahead of its time when it came to an affinity for cycling. Here's Franco talking about meeting Mike.
Yeah, I was already into bike photography. I was already doing it. Moved to Rosslyn because I knew I kind of always want to check this place out and try living here. And then Tyler at the bike shop said, because I'm looking for local kids to shoot, obviously. And he's like, oh, I know a kid that you should go out and shoot with. And then introduced me to Hopkins. Hopkins shows up. If this is his handlebar, here's his grip, and this is all just metal bar. So he had his grip with like about 1.5 inches, 2 inches of like steel hanging out the end with an open plug on both ends. So I was like, super, you did, you remember that?
Of course
like,
I did.
Yeah, like, and like, why do you have metal, like, just to jab you, like, that's how he rolls, just didn't care, right? Just make her happen.
I was a kid, man.
You're a kid.
Everything came from within a 100-kilometer span in the Kootenays. Nelson, Rosslyn, the I would say creative force that lives within that, and like all these very talented people in their own spaces. It would be great to kind of get them all together, and that's something I feel like Life Cycles did. It was pretty cool. It was like a meeting of the minds.
And all of these collaborators are still in the game. Many still working together. Hopkins is a filmmaker now. Juicy Studios, who did the graphics on the movies, still going strong. Derek and Ryan Gibbs still behind the lens. Derek actually shoots for Planet Earth BBC. Yeah. I co-wrote another bike film called The Engine Inside, and Anders Peterson, who put a ton of work into Life Cycles, is still making films.
I just worked with him on a climbing movie this winter. Hopkins has hired me several times for his excellent Dream Ride series. It's the love-in that never ends.
You got to check out his Dream Ride series if you haven't seen it. It's beautiful. It's like Dr. Seuss meets worldly mountain bike adventure. This area has cultivated an even larger creative ecosystem that goes far beyond the group we're talking about here.
The region we live in has always had the geologic goods, the nature-based thrill seekers, and then the people with the cameras inevitably follow, which then attracts more people to visit. I ended up here from watching ski movies made by Bill Heath from Nelson, watching them in some rainy day in a rancid little apartment far away. Bill's a legend, but it really encouraged me to come visit. These action sports creations are really the gateway to the whole lifestyle.
Yeah, Bill Heath, Ski Your Ass Off, Sinners, classics. And that's been going on in the Kootenays for quite a while. There's a long list of influential filmmakers that inspired Life Cycles, like Radical Films, whose Crank series was primarily shot in the Kootenays, in the North Shore, Vancouver, and Nelson-based Freeride Entertainment, whose FWD series was really quite influential in the mountain bike scene.
Well, of course, the Crank series, I would say first was Cranked in terms of there's a film called Vicious Cycles that I watched when I was really young, getting into mountain biking. Probably in terms of like filmmaking and stuff, like seeing Cranked 1 was like, that blew my mind, right? And seeing people that are riding like the scree slopes that they were and stuff. And actually what happened was, so we saw that, which is actually Fort Shepherd, with Sweatland, and we saw that sequence and cranked. And the very next day we went out to, because I live in Regina, Saskatchewan, and I was kind of into photography, and I was already into kind of like street bike, biking and stuff. I had a mountain bike, and we went out and started riding our local set, because we're like, oh, I didn't know we could ride gravel pits. So we have lots of gravel pits, but they're only like 100-foot long section, but there's always like a 6-foot drop in the middle, right? So all of a sudden we're like, we can do this in Saskatchewan. We had our bike, we had our hockey pads on, and stuff, and we went out, and I don't know if it was right away, but I took a picture of my buddy in the sand dunes, and that got the cover of Bike in 1998, Photo Annual. So it was my first published photo, was the result of me going out to the gravel pits because we saw Cranked and thought, well, we can do that here. Like, that opened our minds, so it's pretty cool.
And in turn, there's a long list of filmmakers who've been influenced by life cycles, like the company Sherpa Cinema, also with big attachments to the Kootenays. The bicycle lends itself to that artistic sort of lens. It's the glue that holds a lot of these productions together. It's not just a collection of steel rods and gears that get you to your job on time, although even that can be viewed with a creative eye. A bike can genuinely ground you to your surroundings in ways a car cannot. You're not going to multitask on a bike. It's eye on the ball time. Your mind on what you're doing.
The bike has been a tool to kind of reimagine the area for you, like your backyard. And I did that. I mean, I've been doing that for my whole life. We spent a lot of time just filming locally, right? We didn't have money, so we were always filming around the Kootenays. That was what we did. The whole film wasn't filmed here, but 80% filmed in this area, all said and done. But it's a way to look at the area in a different way. It just gives you a good reason to go out and wander around the woods and look for some crazy location that is different than anywhere else, and you find it. It's like, I'm pretty sure not many people have set foot in this area where we're standing right now, and we filmed the seasonal wipes, and it's because of bikes. We found it and experienced it.
That was fun, Graham. Thanks for the jam. You can view that iconic scene in Life Cycles by visiting our website, headwaterspodcast.com. Now let's head back out to the trails to hear about a growing movement in mountain biking that has roots, surprise, surprise, right here in the Kootenays.
Mountain biking is not the most inclusive sport. It's geographically dependent, financially demanding, physically taxing, and notoriously dangerous. But it's well worth it for those who felt the transformative power of rolling through the mountains. But can you imagine suffering a life-changing spinal injury, or being diagnosed with a degenerative illness? Imagine losing the ability to continue biking, or the chance to even get started. What would you do? It just so happens that the Columbia Basin's spirit of progression and ingenuity has given birth to a new movement that is providing some answers for those who once didn't have options. It's called adaptive mountain biking. Now, an array of trail builders, bike manufacturers, and race organizers are banding together to get riders with disabilities where they belong, on the trail.
Maybe even just go around the tree and set up a little straighter that way and just really go for it. Maybe grab one more gear a little bit harder.
Okay.
And just show me that through the cone.
All right.
Let's go.
That's Mike Rediger, CEO of the Kootenay Adaptive Sports Association, helping Tanner Fandry get familiarized with his new adaptive bike. Located in Nakusp, BC, the association, also known as KASA, has blazed 150 kilometers of adaptive single track since 2018, created a 108-page manual for adaptive instructors, and launched the Canadian Adaptive Mountain Bike Association. The best part is, Mike didn't even know what he was getting into when it started.
We had moved here in 2018, and there was a job posting for someone to take a look at doing a feasibility study for switching an organization into adaptive mountain biking. I had never heard of adaptive mountain biking. Mountain biking, very, very long time at this point, but still hadn't heard of it. And I thought it was an interesting, unique challenge. And in a very natural and roundabout way, this area kind of became a hub for the development of adaptive mountain biking. I can't even say how, to be honest, but that's how we switched into becoming the organization that specializes in adaptive mountain biking, one of the few in the world.
Mike defines KASA as a nonprofit that specializes in adaptive mountain biking, recreation, infrastructure projects, and consulting. But from the look of pure stoke on Tanner Fandry's face on this sunny day in the cusp, I'm not sure his definition quite covers what is really being accomplished here.
So I have a genetic condition called ankylosing spondylitis, and it caused bilateral avascular necrosis. So basically, my lower four vertebrae are fused together, and both of my hips look like Swiss cheese. They literally have holes right through them. So as I do stand-up sports and stuff, the impact sports, especially like mountain biking or like skiing, my hips basically break apart and break down. As soon as it was diagnosed, the doctor basically said, you'll never play hockey or ski again, really. And, your life's going to change a lot, so figure it out. And I've really definitely figured out different ways of doing the exact same activities and really excelling at a lot of them and having a great time.
The bike Tanner is sitting on is nothing short of a freedom machine, with companies like Bowhead in Calgary and Sport On in Poland leading the charge. Adaptive bikes look like a cross between a dune buggy and something Mr. Peanut would have pedaled a century ago, which pretty much covers the full range of cool. 30-inch overall width for trail compatibility, 2 tires in the front set on an articulating axle, and 1 oversized fat tire in the back with a big old fender. Oversized suspension, disc brakes, and an electric motor for getting started. If it wasn't for the $17,000 price tag, I'd be more than tempted to make one of these my own. But that price tag and many other barriers are being gradually broken down.
I think people out here just are more inclined to take risks, take chances, and adapt what they can do to make things work compared to a lot of other places. I think that spirit of independence is what's pushed us to be very different compared to most nonprofits offering this. We've done a lot of world firsts, including racing here in the Kootenays, and I think that's really pushed the development of it around the world. So now we're seeing other organizations emulating and growing their own programs now in a more structured way.
All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go! Have a good day, everybody!
That's the start area for the Cranbrook Gravel Grind, a fun annual race that welcomes riders of all abilities, including hand cyclists, tandems, and adaptive riders. Here's Carter Newstig, founder and race director of the Gravel Grind.
We try and follow AGES, that's the abbreviation for Anything Goes Event Series, AGES. Its motto, which is any rider, any experience of any gear. So we try and cater courses that follow that the best, and so which is why we try and offer multiple distances. We have a 65 and 115K route this year.
And with a high-profile race series like British Columbia's Dunbar adding an adaptive mountain biking category, Carter sees nothing but growth in the forecast.
We're not just seeing local riders, but we're seeing riders come from Edmonton, Calgary, as far as even Vancouver, and even some from the States. So for this smaller event, I think we have about 2-3 riders out. But each year, the adaptive numbers are getting better, and I think the support is growing for them as well, across the board, not just at our events.
And back in the cusp, Mike Rediger sees things going in a similar direction.
Every year is better than the last year. The knowledge is getting passed on. It's getting passed on through other people, so it's not always just myself or others guiding it all the time. People that run these race series, they're stepping up and actually doing the work themselves and just seeking little bits of guidance, which is fantastic. You got it. Right on. Give them a moment.
Yeah, no worries.
Should be pretty fast. Okay, go.
How you feeling?
Good.
Should we take it to the trails?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
Time to head north, way up to the big mountains and sprawling evergreen wilderness of Valemount, a small town of about 1,100 people at the northern tip of the Columbia Basin. For years, Valemount wasn't what you'd call a tourism destination, more of a quick highway stop for gas and snacks, until the local outdoor community made mountain biking a priority.
My name is Curtis Pollock. I'm the Executive Director of the Vail Mountain Area Recreation Development Association, better known as VARDA. VARDA is a nonprofit recreation development group, so we specialize in public recreation area management. We're a bit unique where we do things such as manage one of the Western Canada's largest snowmobile tourism industries for our community. We've also built over the last 8 years one of the most sought after bike parks right now, known as the Valemount Bike Park. We have a total of 55 trails, varying in all different levels. And we have things that are more bike parky per se, as well as a lot of just the old school traditional mountain biking. It came to us as an idea from another local organization that just didn't have the capacity. They kind of provided us an older master plan. And, then my job was to convince a board of snowmobilers and business owners that mountain biking was a good thing to go after.
It turns out the people of Valemount were onto something that had the power to transform their community. The beautiful bicycle seems to have a knack for doing that to a place. We'll let Curtis have the final word.
The impact is huge, and that's one of the most amazing things I think of biking is, their involvement, the bikers themselves, their involvement in the community and how visual they are. Up until we built the bike park, Valemount's just a highway destination. It was in between Edmonton and Vancouver, or Edmonton and the Shuswap. Nobody pulled into Valemount, and our goal for so long was to find a way. It was always, how do we get people to stay an hour? How do we get people to stay an evening? And now we have travelers from all over the world. Our downtown core used to be a ghost town. There were no businesses down there. There's several businesses that are directly related to the creation of the trail system. Our downtown core is packed. All you see is vehicles with bikes and people on bikes, and it's completely flipped our summer economy around.
And that's our podcast on beautiful bicycles in the basin. Thanks to our reporter for this episode, Graham Tracy.
You're welcome, Mitch.
Okay, Graham, you're done now. Back to the audio board, my friend. No more voice from you. For more stories on our noblest invention and associated story links to Kootenay Mountain Culture Magazine articles and some of the film projects mentioned in this podcast, including Life Cycles, head over to our website, headwaterspodcast.com. The Headwaters is created by the folks at Kootenay Mountain Culture Productions and brought to you by Columbia Basin Trust. To find out more about all the good things the Trust does when it comes to supporting people and communities in the Columbia Basin, visit ourtrust.org. I'm Mitchell Scott, and thanks for listening.